So Moses has been teaching the young people their history of where their people have been in the last 40 years until this point in time. And now it's time for him to teach them of the rules and ordinances so that they will be prepared for when they enter into the promised land, which is very shortly. If they can follow the rules and ordinances set out by the Lord, they will have a great time. But if they do not, it will be very unpleasant. And the way that some of these things are explained, they're almost prophetic of the future to come when they are in disobedience. Deuteronomy 4:1. Now listen and give heed, O Israel, to the statutes and ordinances which I teach you, and do them, that you may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, gives you. Moses is continuing with his communications to the Israelites, and now he's stressing this point here. It's almost as if he's saying, this part here, this is important. This is going to be on the test. So he's trying to get their attention and prepare them so that they're ready to go into the promised land. That they know what they need to do when they get there and how to act and behave. This is important. Deuteronomy 4:2. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. Moses is stressing the importance of what he is going to say, in that the distortion of it would be very troubling. Manipulating the words of Moses to say something that they do not would be incredibly harmful to the Israelites. We see something similar to this in the book of the Revelation, when it talks about the adding or the taking away words from it. Deuteronomy 4:3. Your eyes still see what the Lord did because of Baal Peor, for all the men who followed the Baal of Peor, the Lord your God has destroyed from among you. This verse here is making a reference to a time when Israel was camping, and the locals, the people of Moab, tempted the Israelites to leave the congregation and to go into the hill country or to the high places and to worship their local deities. Baal, of course, being one of them. This is also around the time that we saw Balaam, the non-Israelite prophet, who was on the high places making altars and sacrificing, and he was commanded by the king to curse the Israelites, but he did the furthest thing from that and ended up blessing them instead. After this event occurred and the people were tempted and worshiping these pagan deities, they returned back to the camp and they were punished by the Lord, and a great plague rolled out and it killed them. And the people of Israel, they would have remembered this event because this was probably, I don't know if it was a few weeks or a few months or maybe a couple of years before the events that are transpiring at the current juncture in time. So in recent memory, they would remember when this event took place. It was not an insignificant amount of people that died at this time either. It was a big event. Deuteronomy 4:4. But you who clung fast to the Lord your God are alive, every one of you this day. The people that trusted in God, put their faith in the Lord, they were able to resist this temptation. And for that reason, they're still alive. Deuteronomy 4:5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and ordinances as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land which you are entering to possess. 4:6. So keep them and do them, for that is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the people who, when they hear of all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Moses has taught the Israelites a number of times beforehand. There's been some big ceremonial events of him teaching, such as in the Exodus when he receives the commandments of the Lord. He really lays it out to the people then, but there was other events that weren't as intense and surreal as that one, where Moses was teaching the people. And there's been a lot of little things along the way that they would have a problem, he would take it to the Lord, and the Lord would get back to him, and then he would teach the people. And some of the things were small, but it built up over time. They were not taught everything all at once, instantaneously, but it was taught as they journeyed. So it gave some time for the information to sink into their bones, so they were not completely overwhelmed. And the laws were not just for the journey towards the promised land, but the laws were to be observed and used in the promised land as well. And if they were obedient and they followed the rules that were outlined by the Lord, the nations round about them would see the wisdom in the laws that the Lord had given them, and it would impact them. Deuteronomy 4:7. For what great nation is there who has a God so near to them as the Lord our God is to us in all things for which we call upon him? 4:8. And what large and important nation has statutes and ordinances so upright and just as all this law which I set before you today? Israel has some great advantages due to their relationship with the Lord God. When it comes to times of trouble or times of need, they can call upon the Lord for deliverance. They know what righteousness is, for righteousness was taught to them by the Lord through their law. As such, they can be a great and mighty nation. And how can the ungodly nations compare to a nation that has the Lord? Moses is making some very good points here. Deuteronomy 4:9. Only take heed and guard your life diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your mind and heart all the days of your life. Teach them to your children and your children's children. Israel has received a tremendous benefit from their relationship with the Lord, and they are blessed from that relationship. But they need to remember these events. Otherwise, they can fall away, and the path that falls away from the Lord is the path of destruction. So they need to be diligent to remember these things, and they need to teach them to their kids and their children's children throughout the generations. They need to reaffirm and reiterate and remember what the Lord has done, so that they don't make the same mistakes that have been made in the past. There's a ton of examples so far. We recently just saw that one with the people being led away and worshiping idols. We had the people who didn't trust in the Lord to deliver them into the promised land. We had those that tried to usurp the priesthood from Aaron. We had the golden calf being made in Mount Sinai. There have been a lot of painful lessons that the Israelites have had to learn unto this point. And it's unfortunate that they're going to have to learn many of these again and again and again. The weaknesses in the flesh are terrible. But if they can trust in the Lord and be obedient to him, all is good. Deuteronomy 4:10. Especially how on the day that you stood before the Lord your God in Horeb, the Lord said to me, gather the people together to me, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn reverently to fear me all the days they live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. This is a reference to the events that took place at the time when they were in the vicinity of Mount Sinai, Mount Sinai is also known as Mount Horeb. There was the event with the Ten Commandments, there was the event with the golden calf, and there was a lot more commandments than the Ten Commandments that were passed on to the people at that time as well. There was quite a bit that happened when they were right in the vicinity of Mount Sinai. I guess Moses too, he went up the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and there was a lot going on there. Deuteronomy 4:11. And you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the heart of heaven, with darkness, cloud, and thick gloom. So now we're seeing a reference to a specific event that occurred when they were at Mount Sinai, and that was when the Lord descended to the top of the mountain. There was all the storms and thunder and fire, and it was a very exciting thing. And there was a veil, there was a cloud that went over the mountain as well, and Moses went to communicate with the Lord. It was a tremendous event. You can see more of that in Exodus 19 and 20. Anyway, Deuteronomy 4:12. And the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the word, but saw no form. There was only a voice. This was an incredible event when it took place. The Lord tried to communicate with the people, but they were petrified with fear from this tremendous event, and they weren't really able to have good communication at that time. So Moses, as their representative, was the one to communicate with the Lord. This was an amazing experience and something that would stick in people's memories, but it seemed like they often forgot of these tremendous events that occurred, for they seemed to lose faith in the Lord fairly often on the journey, and needed to be reminded continually of who it was that was leading them and who had the power to deliver them. Deuteronomy 4:13. And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, the 10 Commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tables of stone. 4:14. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you the statutes and precepts, that you might do them in the land which you are going over to possess. So Moses is the representative of the people, and he climbs to the top of the mountain to communicate with the Lord. And there they come to an agreement on the covenant, the terms and conditions of a deal, a contract between 2 parties, between God and the people of Israel. The terms of the covenant, of course, are written on stone, and Moses is to bring them down to the people. The 10 Commandments are on these stones. Beyond the 10 Commandments, we have the Lord commanding Moses to teach these rules and regulations to the people of Israel, so that when they get to the promised land and take possession of it, they will be able to use it in the way that the Lord wants. Deuteronomy 4:15. Therefore take good heed to yourself, since you saw no form of him on the day the Lord spoke to you on Horeb, out of the midst of the fire. They encountered the Lord and they were exposed to the Lord, but they never saw the Lord in his physical presence. And this was a good thing, because if they would have seen him, they would have attempted to make graven images of him. And they had enough problems with graven images as it was. It could have been much worse. God is not a fan of graven images. It's one of the 10 Commandments, and we're going to see that here in a second. Deuteronomy 4:16. Beware lest you become corrupt by making for yourself to worship a graven image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female. 4:17. The likeness of any beast that is on the earth, or any winged fowl that flies in the air. 4:18. The likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, or any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. The issue of graven images is quite significant, and as such, Moses is giving additional details here of different types that people could make to try to prevent them from making them, so that they realize what it is that they are doing. I wouldn't think that everything that is a graven image was necessarily created to be one. I could see something where someone was making a wooden figure of an animal or something, and then maybe they're selling them, and then someone buys it, and then they start attributing things to it, like a lucky charm. And they would be placing their trust in this charm rather than the Lord God. So it could be something very minor, but it could be something very severe. But anything that is in that path between you and the Lord God is idolatry. Deuteronomy 4:19. And beware lest you lift up your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, moon, and stars, even all the host of the heavens, you will be drawn away and worship them and serve them, things which the Lord your God has allotted to all nations under the whole heaven. In our modern day, with all the light pollution, the stars in the sky at night do not seem very impressive. I do remember an occasion occurring a few years ago where there was like a blackout, I think in California, and people were calling 911 because of the things they were seeing in the sky. And that's just the stuff that was always there, but because the power was out, people could actually see the sky for once and marvel at its magnificence. But there is a danger of the stars in the sky, and people like to worship them. And that's where we get things like astrology. And we've had examples of this previously in the Bible as well, with the Tower of Babel, where they tried to make this giant skyscraper thing to reach the stars. There's definitely a danger there. Deuteronomy 4:20. But the Lord has taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be to him a people of his own possession, as you are this day. This is an absolutely incredible verse. We have Israel being iron, placed in a furnace that is Egypt, heated till they are red hot. Then the Lord pulls them out of the furnace, and he shapes them into a shape that he desires. Like metalworking, hammering them in to the shape that is needed. Shaped in such a way to bring forth the Messiah, to deliver the world into salvation, to rebuild the relationship that was broken at the start of Genesis. Incredible. Deuteronomy 4:21. Furthermore, the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he swore that I should not go over the Jordan, and that I should not enter the good land which the Lord your God gives you for an inheritance. Moses has repeated this multiple times, that he is not allowed to enter into the promised land. It's almost as if he is warning the people that even him, Moses, the one appointed by the Lord to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, is not going into the promised land, warning them that they need to be obedient to the Lord and not make the same type of mistakes that he made, so that they don't forfeit their inheritance. Deuteronomy 4:22. But I must die in this land. I must not cross the Jordan, but you shall go over and possess that good land. It's a very sad event here, where Moses, for the last 40 years, has been looking after these people, watching the young generation grow up, and now that they're of age, and the old generation is gone, it's time for them to go into the promised land, but he's not going to be able to join them. So there's a tinge of regret there, due to his failing beforehand. But at the same time, he can't hold them up. He can't stop them. He needs to pass away so that they can go on. Deuteronomy 4:23. Take heed to yourselves, lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make for yourselves a graven image in the form of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. 4:24. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. 4:25. When children shall be born to you, and children's children, and you have grown old in the land, if you corrupt yourselves by making a graven image in the form of anything, and do evil in the sight of the Lord your God, provoking him to anger. Moses is warning the people of the dangers of these graven images, in that God is a jealous God and he doesn't appreciate graven images, and how the people need to be diligent, teaching their children and their children's children of the dangers of the graven image. For when they create them, God is going to be angry, and his punishment will be very severe for those that create these graven images. As God's people on earth, they are held to a different standard than everybody else. They are his representatives, his ambassadors. So this is something that they cannot be doing. Deuteronomy 4:26. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that you shall soon utterly perish from the land which you are going over the Jordan to possess. You will not live upon it, but will be utterly destroyed. 4:27. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. Moses is making a declaration with witnesses to witness what he has said about what will happen when they do this level of disobedience. That they will be removed from the land, destroyed as a nation, and scattered among the earth. An incredibly severe punishment, and something that unfortunately does happen. Deuteronomy 4:28. There you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear, nor eat nor smell. Not only will they be removed from the land, but they will be placed in bondage, forced to work and serve these idolaters. Deuteronomy 4:29. But if from there you will seek, inquire for, and require as necessary the Lord your God, you will find him if you truly seek him with all your heart and mind and soul and life. Even though they are thrown into a very difficult situation, God hasn't forgot about them. And if they seek after the Lord with the heart, soul, and mind, he will deliver them from their bondage, deliver them from the troubles that they find themselves in. And that's pretty wonderful and pretty amazing. Just hope when they're in that situation that they know the scripture, to know when Moses taught them these things, so that they have a hope of getting out of that situation. What an absolutely incredible verse. And it is something important, something that we should not forget. For it's the same now as it is then. That when you're in a difficult situation and you need help, ask for it, seek it out. Heart, soul, and mind. Deuteronomy 4:30. When you are in tribulation, and all these things come upon you, in the latter days you will turn to the Lord your God, and be obedient to his voice. This is one of those multi-dimensional verses that is applicable at different times throughout history and in times yet to come in the future. We're going to see as we make our way through the Old Testament different situations where the Israelites have been backed into a corner, and they came to rely on the Lord again, and the Lord delivered them from impossible circumstance. Deuteronomy 4:31. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not fail you or destroy you or forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them. This is a very reassuring verse, and it gives context to what we saw previously. That the Lord, despite the way that he is treated sometimes, is not going to abandon his people, and he's not going to break his covenant with them. That he will help them in their time of need. Deuteronomy 4:32. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man upon the earth, and ask from one end of the heavens to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever occurred, or been heard of anywhere. The relationship that God has with the people of Israel is different than any other relationship in history, and it is something completely different, and no one has seen this before. This covenant is a special relationship that they have with God. Deuteronomy 4:33. Did ever people hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you heard and lived? Demonstrating the uniqueness of their relationship, that they communicated with the Lord directly in that event that took place on Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb. Deuteronomy 4:34. Or has God ever tried to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm, and by great terrors, as the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your eyes? Another event that is unique to their relationship that they have with the Lord. He's never done this before. There's no examples of anything like this throughout history. Israel is the only one that God has done this to. Deuteronomy 4:35. To you it was shown that you might realize and have personal knowledge that the Lord is God. There is no other beside him. 4:36. Out of the heavens he made you hear his voice, that he might correct, discipline, and admonish you. And on earth he made you see his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. God could have done what he did in a different way, but he did it in this particular way so that the people would have a connection to him, that they would be able to appreciate their relationship through their experience, being slaves in Egypt, being delivered from the slavery in Egypt, being brought out, and in the way that these different miracles were performed. They were all done so that people would know and they would believe on the Lord and trust in the Lord. Due to the shortcomings of human nature, a lot of this seems very ineffective. We had Moses going to the top of the mountain to communicate with the Lord, and he was gone for a little bit. And when he came back, they were worshiping a golden calf. Like they just got delivered out of Egypt. They saw all those wonderful miracles. Moses was just going to the top of the mountain to communicate with the Lord and come back. And they're already worshiping an idol. Then when they got towards the promised land, they were afraid to enter it, as if the Lord couldn't deliver them into the promised land. So they really lacked faith despite encountering the Lord and seeing all these wonderful miracles. The Bible is filled with stories that show why things are not effective to those people that say that they would believe on God if they saw a miracle. We have it demonstrated here in the Old Testament that even the people that saw tons of miracles getting delivered out of Egypt, they didn't even believe. Deuteronomy 4:37. And because he loved your fathers, he chose their descendants after them, and brought you out from Egypt with his own presence by his mighty power. First we saw Abraham. God really liked Abraham, and he had a relationship with Abraham. And he made a covenant with Abraham because he liked him so much. Then he made a covenant and had a relationship with Abraham's son, Isaac. Afterwards, Isaac had a son, Jacob. And God liked Jacob and had a relationship with Jacob. He even renamed Jacob to Israel. And now we have the descendants of Israel. And God is making a relationship with them as well, now that they are a nation. All the children of Israel and all the descendants of those children. And he delivered them out of Egypt. Deuteronomy 4:38. Driving out nations from before you, greater and mightier than yourselves, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. 4:39. Knowing, recognizing, and understanding, therefore, this day, and turn your mind and heart to it, that the Lord is God in the heavens above, and upon the earth beneath. There is no other. God, due to his relationship with the descendants of Israel, is giving them this land. He is taking it from these other groups of people to give it to Israel as a possession. And he's the only one who is capable of doing this. So they need to believe on God and trust in God. 4:40. Therefore you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you this day, that it may go well with you and your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which the Lord your God gives you forever. Israel on their own, when they're separated from the Lord, they're pretty weak. They can't really get much done, and they seem to lose often. But when the Lord is there and the Lord is guiding them and granting them strength, they're able to do much more. And part of this covenant, part of this deal, is that God wants to be their God, and for them to be his people. Due to their relationship with the Lord, they need to act in a certain way. They cannot be like the world around them. They need to be separate and different and distinct from those around them. And God has set out a bunch of different rules and regulations for them to follow, so that when they're in the land, they act this way, and God will protect them and allow them to possess the land. But if they're in disobedience, God is going to remove them from the land. So they need to be diligent and educate their kids and their children's children, so that they're able to maintain their position in the land. Deuteronomy 4:41. Then Moses set apart 3 cities of refuge beyond the Jordan to the east. So Israel has already conquered a lot of the land here on the east, and it is going to be divided up between the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Reuben, and Manasseh. And seeing as they already have possession of this land, Moses is setting up the cities of refuge. He was going to set up 3 on the east side and 3 cities on the west side, so that no matter where you were in Israel or the land that they will eventually possess, that you would be a reasonable distance to one of these cities of refuge. And the city of refuge is just a place to go in the event of what we would call manslaughter, the accidental death of a person, that you could go to these cities and take refuge there, and if it was indeed manslaughter, that you would be able to stay there until the high priest dies, and then you would be free to go. Otherwise, the avenger of blood would be able to slay you. Deuteronomy 4:42. That the manslayer might flee there, who slew his neighbor unintentionally, and had not previously been at enmity with him, that fleeing to one of these cities he might save his life. 4:43 Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland for the Reubenites, and Ramoth in Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Manassites. So here we have the names of these cities of refuge. Deuteronomy 4:44. This is the law which Moses set before the Israelites. 4:45. These are the testimonies and laws and the precepts which Moses spoke to the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. 4:46. Beyond the Jordan, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Shion, king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon, whom Moses and the Israelites smote when they came out of Egypt. 4:47. And they took possession of his land, and the land of Og, king of Bashan, the two kings of the Amorites, who lived beyond the Jordan to the east. 4:48. From Aror, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, as far as Mount Siron, that is Harmon. 4:49. And all the Arabah lowlands beyond the Jordan eastward as far as the sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, under the slopes and springs of Pisgah. So here we have some different locations mentioned, and they're going to be in reference to the next chapter.